Hey everyone, Kirk here again at optionalpha.com, where we show you how to make smart trades. In tonight's video update, I want to go through all the trades that we made today on Monday, December 18th. First of all, we did actually finally record the interview with co-founder of Robinhood, Beju, and that was awesome. It was a great interview, a lot of good stuff, answered a lot of questions that you guys had, so hopefully that will get released here very soon in the next couple days, with inside of a week. Just to get that out so you guys have that as a special interview. And what was cool for me and very humbling, as you'll hear on the interview, was that actually a lot of people at Robinhood, even though they're a small but mighty team, but a lot of their developers and people on their team in starting to build out an options trading platform actually went through training at Option Alpha and used the training that they learned at Option Alpha as kind of the foundational elements. So we've got some really cool. I mean, like, for me, it's just totally humbling to again hear that, you know, a big company like what Robinhood is doing is basically having their people go through Option Alpha's training and use our training as the foundational blocks for them as they build out their options trading system. So super cool, and very, very humbled to obviously speak to him and talk about the business. So as far as today goes, we had a couple different things going on. Some new entries in major market ETFs, the Dow, the Qs. Also had to clean up some stuff that was at risk of assignment. As always, if you guys have questions on assignment, or if you're new to assignment, go over to the support tab and then check out the knowledge base. Inside there's a couple videos in there about how you can figure out if your contracts are at risk of assignment. Remember, brokers always have to let you know that you have a short option contract in the money, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's at risk of assignment. So going back here, the first trade that we got into today in the afternoon was another Iron Butterfly and DIA. This was planned, as we talked about in the strategy call with elite members last night. We wanted to get into some of these laddered positions in the Dow and the Qs so that it helps spread out our position there. And in this case, we did the 147 calls and puts. So sold the 147 calls and puts, and then bought options out on either end. $7 to $8 and bought some fairly cheap wings, I guess, fairly cheap for the Dow. Overall, though, this is a good position for us to be in. Let me just, readjust that screen there so you guys can see this. Good position for us to be in for the Dow, because now our new position, our new blended position, is a little bit more balanced. We're still bearish on the markets, obviously, with the Dow position, so we'd love the Dow to be here, but our original position was shaped like this, right? And so it didn't have much exposure. In fact, it was kind of outside of starting to get outside of our break-even point. So now with this new position, we kind of chop off this maximum potential that we have up here in the form of actually just widening out our break-even point. So that's the trade-off that we do when we ladder into positions. We cut the top end. We still can make over $1,000 if we went all the way to expiration on this combined position, but we cut the top end on one and spread out the base on the other ones. We did also get out of our IYR, Iron Butterfly, for a $14 scratch. These ones were at risk of assignment for IYR. Just to go through this real quick, since it is a little bit more relevant. IYR probably was going to pay a dividend around 60-something cents. It's hard to tell with some of these until they actually publish the perspective on this, but another way that you can do it, if you just look at like deep in the money options on the put side, is to look at the extrinsic value for these options. And it's hard because some are really like crazy calculated, but with light volume, but like deep, like far out in the money options for February, say like 67 cents or so. Like those are really probably big contracts. The 90s probably have a lot of volume, so 57 as well. So just look at those, but you can see it's around like 60 something, in that range or in that ballpark. And so what we wanted to do was close out of our contracts that were a little bit closer to where the stock was at 81. And so the 81s were obviously about 49, so less than the value of the other ones. So we just want to go ahead and close those, remove the risk, and just take the position off. If we want to get into it later on, we can, but IV rank is obviously pretty low. For EFA, we closed EFA also for a scratch, a little $44 scratch on this one. Nothing there really, I guess, to report either. EFA does a little bit of a weird payout. I think they pay semi-annually, so it's a pretty big payout of about maybe $1 or so, maybe plus $1. And so for our contracts that were the 69s, you can see that the premium in those is less than the dividend being paid, so probably at risk of assignment. Also, why we did not roll those contracts to February, I had some people who rolled. I told them to immediately close the position because rolling to the next month doesn't do you much justice, even if you roll to the 69s in February, because those are still less than the value of the dividend. So those would still be at risk of assignment. Really, it's only any of those in the money calls that have corresponding puts that are worth more than the dividend that would not be at risk of assignment, which would be EWY, EM today. Those both not at risk of assignment. Doesn't mean you can't get assigned, just not at insane risk of assignment. Last one that we got into was another Q Iron Butterfly. Again, just like the DIA trade today, this helps spread out our position. We laddered into the 159 calls and puts and then bought cheap protection at 166 and 152. Again, this helps spread out the base of this position in the Qs. So if we look at the Q position that we have now, 3 Qs, not 2, you can see it's a much wider base. We cut the top off of this pyramid, right? So we had a position that looked like this originally over the 154 strike, I believe is where we were at. And so we cut that top off, but we were able to widen out the base. And that's exactly what we try to do with these when you ladder into them. We'll probably won't do any more ladder positions for January, but I think these are good. Like even though the Qs backed off of the top a little bit, I mean, we're actually sitting really well in the Qs, blended for these two positions. It's just a matter of time decay. Like the difference between purple and green here is just time decay and volatility heading to expiration. So it's just a patience game. We just have to wait for things to come in and kind of go our way, which we'll continue to do. So as always, hopefully you guys enjoyed these. If you have any comments or questions, let me know. Until next time, happy trading.